So it's always good to start off a class with a good theoretical base for how to approach the material. As I mentioned last week, one of the most important things that marketers can have is a really good bookshelf of insightful and forward-thinking books. I really feel like Rise of the Platform Marketer by Craig Dempster and John Lee of Merkle is one of those books that really makes you think much more critically about digital marketing and the capabilities individuals and organizations have to have in order to master or at least get digital disruption under control. So I'm not asking you to read the book. It'd be great if you did, but I know that you have a lot of other things going on. So I'm going to summarize the framework and I'm going to point you to the website where additional videos and concepts are summarized. Let's dig in. So why would you read this book? One reason would be to get context, to have a deeper understanding of data-driven marketing. Unless you're working for a company that's hired, say, a Merkle, an Epsilon, an Experian, then it's really hard to kind of get this great learning on how data should be used to facilitate customer journeys, to have insights into the customer, to personalize the experience, and reduce friction. So it's a great opportunity to learn without actually going to work for one of the agencies or working with them as a client. Number two, it really will give you a more sophisticated idea about targeting. It's no longer about looking at segments of age and demographics and location. Don't get me wrong, those are still very, very important. But being able to target based on first, second, and third-party data really is where we're moving to. And there are obviously going to be challenges we'll talk about throughout this class because of the concern about privacy and data protection. But this gives a good framework on what we can really do with targeting. And the third really is to get the insights from Merkle. If you ask really smart marketers out there that are facilitating data-driven journeys, they would say that Merkle's one of the top ones out there. All agencies are still struggling with having a 360-degree view of the customer, but Merkle does it really well. And the two folks that wrote this are two of the top executives in the Americas. So it really is a great book. Here's another diagram that you'll see from time to time. This is really a more simplified version of the diagram I showed you after the Gartner digital map the other day. But these are all the elements or the different parts of digital marketing and ad serving technology that is between the marketer and the publisher to the target audience. So again, what we're trying to reinforce is that there are a lot of options out there and it's a very complicated digital landscape. One of the concepts discussed in Rise of the Platform Marketer is that as we've moved from really the beginning of the consumer internet from the mid-90s to today, we've really moved from how we differentiate ourselves as marketers. Initially, we talked about portals with AOL and MSN and Yahoo, places where you could go and get a lot of different information grouped by category with a little bit of search. Then we moved into optimization with Google and advertising.com. Boy, that's a throwback. As we moved on into the current era, we differentiated by technology, the ability to serve up ads, and then really data integration and analytics, getting the first, second, and third-party data to work together to target better, getting the information back from actions from the consumer, from preferences, and being able to provide marketers with much more powerful targeting and addressability. And remember, addressability is the ability to understand who's behind a device. Having addressable media is very, very important, and it actually helps when we're talking about our funnel analyses. Without addressable media, we're spending a lot of time on efforts at the top of the funnel in awareness and consideration. And we're getting folks further down the pipeline that really aren't our best customers or really aren't where we want to spend our time. Think about the people that are in personal selling. The leads that they get may not be qualified and may require a lot of help and have really low margins for the company. So as we get further down, the remarketing pool is really a hot mess because we don't really know who we're talking to. Now let's compare that with the funnel where we have addressable consumers throughout the process. So we can target digitally, we can differentiate the customer experience in the consideration stage. When we're remarketing, we can optimize the channels and we can eliminate out the unqualified leads and waste. And our hope is that we have very clear audiences, that we have the more high value targets in there, and that we've effectively utilized our addressability abilities to re-engage and maximize our existing customers. Basically, we know who we're talking to, and we're talking to the right people, and we help those that are not the right customers to self-select out.
Marketing strategies require more than just demographic and purchase behavior data to build effective messaging. A deep understanding of what drives a consumer decision is required. Within any customer decision is a core motivational element that must be identified early in the creative process. Often, the factors that motivate a customer come from specific hidden personal values. There are 4 factors to consider, and you need to understand all 4 to maximize your ability to influence. Motivational, demographical, behavioral, and attitudinal. An ability to discover what the targetable population requires to make a purchase decision creates a big advantage in both message and treatment of your marketing experiences. Uncovering the insights is only the first part of the effort. Connecting those insights to better performing marketing initiatives is the real challenge for the platform marketer.
So you see ads online every day, but do you really know how they actually work? There are really 2 formats, an ad network and an ad exchange. An ad network is a business that basically matches advertisers to websites. The networks work as brokers for suppliers and the buyers, or the advertisers. Exchanges are similar, but it's a marketplace where buyers come together with sellers. The model is more transparent, and the buyer and seller have greater insight into the value of the inventory being transacted. We're leaning much more towards exchanges today.
Browse a website. The site's web server returns a bunch of code telling the browser what to display. Within this code is a link known as an ad tag. In its simplest form, the ad tag points to the publisher's ad server, which looks inside itself to decide what ad to show. The server then returns that ad to the browser for you to see, and the process ends. We will ignore the third-party buyer ad server call for now. But more likely, the publisher's ad server returns some code that points to what is called a supply-side platform, or SSP. The browser now calls the SSP, which then starts what is called an auction on its own side, reaching out to and requesting bids from a number of demand sources. These demand sources could be demand-side platforms, or DSP, and/or ad networks. The DSPs and ad networks look within their own sets of buyer relationships to find which ad they want to show to the user and how much they want to pay for it. DSPs may run another auction on their side to decide the most relevant ad and bid. The DSPs and ad networks then submit a bid back to the SSP. The SSP executes an auction to find the highest paying ad and passes it back to the browser. The code passed back to the browser essentially functions as a redirect, and the browser now calls the winning DSP directly. The DSP sends back the code containing the ad it wants to show. The code is a redirect to the marketer's ad server, and the browser then calls the ad server. The ad server returns the actual creative, and the ad is shown.
Okay, so to be very honest, I won't ask you that on the quiz, but I think it's really important to understand all the things that are happening in the background, particularly around ad auctions, how ads are served, and if we're really speaking to the customer that we know is behind the screen. We're next going to talk about data management platforms. Tough crowd. So moving on, a DMP is a data management platform. Basically, that's a fancy term for a repository where we would keep all of our data, first, second, and third party, that would feed it up to the right people in the company at the right time. It's important that we don't have our data in silos, meaning that they're often separate systems that can't be accessed and used together. When we have all of our data that are accessible together and in context, we can look at a 360-degree view of the customer, or we hope that we can. It's really important that we can serve up the right information to the right people in the company, but only the information they need. With the focus on data privacy and security, it's more and more important inside companies that data aren't accessed when they're not necessary.